Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 500! Woo! Woo!
I thought that was a big number and needed a longer woo, but I didn't want to put too much energy into it.
Right, you don't want to yell at anybody.
Because then...
It was so big you got a Justin woo.
Yeah.
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker. As always, I'm joined by Viable Human, Chris Saturn, and our producer, Guy, is here for our beginning of the show.
Our big 500 episode spectavaganza.
Spectavaganza.
Spectavaganza. I love it. Yeah, no, I want to stop in real quick. I'm still like sick, so there's no like Guy Zone for like the past month, and it sucks. And
yeah,
I didn't feel like committing to like 20 minutes of talking about randomables. So
yeah.
Unlike the pre-show where you spent 20 minutes
where we
talking
got
about
12
random
minutes
bullshit.
of random bullshit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but then that's people who pay to listen to random bullshit, so it's fine. But no, I do. You guys never celebrate yourselves, and like 500 episodes is, a big accomplishment. Like you've been doing this for almost 10 years, and 500 is a big old round number, and I just wanted to like take a minute and say congratulations, y'all. That's pretty cool.
No, thank you.
Part of me thought you were going to come on and be like, it's your 500th episode, so I just want to tell you, fuck you guys, I'm done with you.
Yep, I'm done producing.
Way to suck for 1,000 times in a row. See you later.
Keep the streak alive. Thank you.
Don't worry, we're gonna. No, thank you. That's very kind.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna go fuck off now.
Okay, bye, Guy.
Bye.
Fuck off, Guy. Bye.
Now the whole beginning of the show feels weird.
It does feel weird.
I don't know what to do.
It's all right.
Housekeeping.
Just roll with it.
This is our 500th episode.
Yeah.
For big landmark episodes before, we have done like super extra mega long things. We're not doing that.
We
this
did
time.
NES, I think, for 250.
Yeah. 100, I think, was Mario 3.
Yeah, something like that.
Or Mario World. I don't remember. We easily look upable information, but we didn't look it up.
We're not going to do that. That's
my
all
point is, we decided this time around that we were going to give ourselves a little bit of a break, and I mean we enjoyed those episodes.
Well, yeah,
but,
that's true.
It's
this is a gift for us this time, though.
A little easier, a little calmer, a little less data driven, a little less historically on point, and more just kind of random shit to talk about for an hour or so, because that's nice.
That's who we are. Is we're people who talk about random shit for half an hour.
Right. We've done 500 of these. If the show isn't going to get good yet, it's not going to happen. It's just also is going to be what it is.
Also, we're only 20 episodes away from our 10th anniversary show.
Yeah.
So we gotta save something for that. We're gonna do
we gotta leave something there.
Gonna do Mafia Wars.
Anyway, my week.
Yes,
I picked up and have been playing. I'm trying to get through Castlevania DS on Castlevania Dominus Collection.
Which
really
Castlevania DS?
The Castlevania DS, the first one.
Oh, Dawn of Souls. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I always call it DS because it's Dawn of Souls.
Yeah,
but it is Dawn of Souls. The first Castlevania DS, I don't like it.
No,
it's just
one of my favorites.
Like it's not bad. I just find the characters really annoying, and they talk too
much. The writing is annoying. Oh man,
it's
the
very
writing
annoying.
is awful, and occasionally
it's
kind
not
of aged poorly.
But trying to kind of
gameplay is good though.
Stick it out through some of that. It's fine. It's fine. It's not like particularly incredible to me. It's just it's Castlevania. There you go. Have fun.
You don't enjoy search action games as much as I do, though.
No, I struggle with them. I wish I liked them because
they're the best.
I feel like the only person on earth that doesn't. There's such a big genre, but I just don't. I'm just like, it's okay.
Well,
I don't want to do so much backtracking.
They're obviously significantly better than like brawlers or something. But,
I don't know why you have to hurt me. 500 episodes and you're still hurting me.
That's what I do.
I've also been trying to make the move to Linux.
Yeah.
My main computer right now is a laptop, and it is problematic in Linux. And I'm trying desperately to get everything worked out enough to the level of confidence that I need to be at to just get rid of my Windows partition and just be in Linux and quit worrying about what new feature Microsoft is going to stuff into Word or whatever next week.
Yeah, I still use Windows on my gaming desktop, but the days are numbered. I am in it less and less, but on my laptop it's been 100% Linux for a while now.
Yeah. I also, someone in the chat mentioned
which distro are you using?
I'm on Manjaro.
Okay.
I've always been a real big Arch fan, but doing vanilla Arch is just kind of a pain in the ass. And
Have you
Manjaro
tried
seemed-
Endeavor?
No, I have not tried Endeavor.
Endeavor is basically the user friendliness of Manjaro, but without all of their custom repositories that get out of date.
Oh,
It's pretty neat.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm gonna land on it. I'm also, my big struggle right now is my secondary drive in my laptop. It's my 4 terabyte game drive, and it is exFAT formatted, which means
why?
Steam in Linux. I presumably because I just put it in and let Windows do its thing, and I wasn't paying attention because I was excited because it was a new computer. Because I got the hard drive in the new computer on like the same day,
Yeah.
and so before I really did much, I opened it up and installed the second hard drive.
Right.
And so presumably I just hit format and wasn't paying attention because I was excited. And Steam on Linux cannot use an exFAT drive because it needs symlinks, and symlinks are not supported in Linux on exFAT drives. So I have to offset 4 terabytes of information to reformat it to NTFS so that then both Linux and Windows can happily use it together.
Right.
Which is an ordeal.
I am the weirdo who every time I have to format any device, I sit there and stare at it and wonder what format I'm going to put it in. I'm that guy.
I should have. I just didn't.
That is a harrowing decision. Like that one meme that's the guy looking at the 2 red buttons and
the 2
sweating.
buttons, yeah.
That's me every time I have to format a drive. I'm like, oh, what format do I put this one in? And then I weigh all the different options for like longer than I should, to the point where the flash drive that I keep in my pocket all the time has 3 partitions on it at all times. It's got a bootable partition, it's got a FAT32 partition, and it's got an NTFS partition.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Realistically, I could delete all my Steam games off that drive and have plenty of space to fit it elsewhere.
Right.
Because I have a PC games folder that's really what I care about, because it's a lot of like manually installed, customized, modded PC games.
Fair.
But Steam games I can just re-download, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to take a long time.
You live in the middle of nowhere, so it'll take forever, yeah.
I don't want to do that, Saturn. I want
you just show up at
to
my
be
house
now.
and download them in like an hour.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I could.
Yeah.
Anyway, I also, someone in the chat mentioned NeoCities.
Nice.
Like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
Which is a like new free version. I mean, GeoCities was already free, but it's basically GeoCities again.
Yeah.
But like made by just some people that wanted to bring back the idea of making your own free website.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that looks fun. And I was playing around on it and looking at different web rings. And first of all, NeoCities is great. There's just a lot of fun web surfing to do there. A lot of people have really cool sites with cool stuff on them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made an account, and when you make an account, it gives you your own NeoCities website.
Yeah. Just like
and so you can make your own site. And I just made the account so I could follow all these other accounts and like interact with it more. And I was like, well, I guess I can play around with making my own NeoCities. And it's like, they're not fucking around. They're like, here's your blank HTML editor. Go.
That's how GeoCities used to do it when I signed up for it back in the day.
But it's been a couple decades. You know, website creation has evolved a little bit.
Yeah. It's been 30 years since I made a GeoCities site, so yeah.
and so I'm sitting here like learning HTML and CSS to play around with like making my own website. And I don't think that anything cool is ever going to come of it. But I feel compelled to do so because now I have an account and people could go there and see the shabby state that my website's in.
I distinctly remember when I first set up GeoCities back in the day. It was either 95 or 96, and there was a thing on the page before you could upload your HTML, because they didn't even have an editor at the time. You had to make your HTML files and then upload them.
Upload the file,
and they had a thing listed there that said, it is recommended that you put your files in HTML 2.0 format so that it'll work with both Netscape and Internet Explorer.
Oh, got to get Netscape Navigator. You don't want to.
Well, everybody used Netscape. This was 95, sir. People weren't using anything but Netscape. But you wanted to make sure it supported this new Internet Explorer thing that people were starting to use.
Yeah. So I'm playing around with that. My problem is I don't want to learn HTML or CSS.
Right.
I just want to have a website. And so every shortcut
Justin,
I can
just sign
take...
up for Squarespace.
Oh, shut up. Every shortcut I can take that is inevitably going to, in the long run, take more time than just learning HTML and CSS. I am. So it's kind of a shit show right now, but I'm getting there. It's fun. And the websites are so much fun. It's so cool to see people. Like I was on a website yesterday that was some guy's Godzilla website.
Nice.
And he had this whole page that's just like every Godzilla monster.
Yeah.
And you click on it, he's got a blurb about him and a picture from the show. And there's just something so like I can go look this information up on Wikipedia with near perfect factual accuracy and citations and everything whenever I want.
But there is something about that personalized touch.
It's almost like magazine-like.
Yeah.
Where you're like, yeah, I can go look this information up in the encyclopedia, but I would rather have someone talk about it. I want to hear someone's opinion, how they feel about it. I want some humanity injected into my information.
Yeah.
So it was really nice. Anyone that is kind of like looking for something to either looking for something to do or wondering what we all used to do on the internet, it's surf web rings on GeoCities, and you can do that now.
Nice.
And they even have web rings and everything. It's great. It's been a really good time. There's some cool stuff there. So if you are pining for the days of a simpler internet, then I highly recommend at least going there and bookmarking some cool sites, if not building your own, because it's been a fun time. Frustrating, but fun. It's been all afternoon today, fucking up HTML code.
Nice.
Anyway, what you been doing, Saturday?
I got a new controller. It's controller week, Justin.
Yes, it's controller week. Yay!
Every week is controller week at Retro Warriors, but this is new controller week.
I keep almost buying this thing, and I have no fucking reason to.
Yeah. So it is Hori's HoriPad for Steam. It was recently released here in the U.S., and I tried many times to buy it before they finally let me buy it. And just today, they finally told me that they refunded all the failed attempts to buy it, which I hadn't realized those weren't fully refunded yet, or I wouldn't have kept trying to purchase. But anyway, so I got my Steam controller, my Hori Steam controller, not the Valve Steam controller. And it looks mostly like a regular controller, but it does have dedicated Steam style buttons, the same buttons you'd see on a Steam Deck, as far as having the Steam button as well as that side menu button to bring in the right side menu. And it got pretty negative reviews when it released in Japan.
Even on Amazon, the reviews are like 2.5 stars.
Yeah, I don't get it because I'm really enjoying it. It seems to work really well. It's super light. That's my only real concern about it, is it weighs like nothing.
Yeah.
But it feels comfortable enough. It has worked in every game that I've thrown at it. Obviously, Steam recognizes everything about it because it is a officially licensed Steam controller.
Yeah. I was looking at some of the reviews, and the complaints are weird. I think I don't know. That like I saw people complaining about the weight and the triggers. That was like the Amazon's like summarized review things. They do their little AI shit. But yeah. Tell me more. I want to know more about this.
It's nice. I mean, it's got some extra buttons on there. It's got 2 M buttons at the bottom of the front, and it's got the additional paddles on the back. And because Steam recognizes them, they are easily mapped through the Steam interface. And by default,
that's one of my problems with the 8BitDo Ultra is that it has those back buttons, but I don't want them statically assigned to one thing, and to do it, I have to do it in their software, and Steam doesn't recognize them as discrete buttons.
Exactly.
So, because I don't know about you, but I do custom button layouts all the time for it. If I'm playing a game and I'm like, this would be easier if I could do this button this way, or this was a turbo or whatever, I do that shit all the time.
I pretty rarely do that. I did do it in Ys Memoir when I was playing that on PS5, just because the default buttons suck.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, I usually stick with the default buttons on most games. I actually was reading, because you had mentioned Tunic in the last episode. Apparently there was a handful of people who, out of habit, they're used to using up on the D-pad for map, so they had mapped that to up or to map. Yeah. And so when they get to the point where the D-pad is more important in the game, suddenly nothing made sense to them. They're like, I keep doing what I think I'm supposed to do, and it doesn't work. It just keeps opening my map.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah,
that would do it
that's
for
not
sure.
how you want to play that game. But no, it's a nice controller. I believe it supports gyro, though I don't really play anything with gyro.
It has gyro, yeah.
And and I think it rumbles, but it's such a lightweight controller that I haven't played anything that really has heavy rumble, so I've not noticed.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's a nice gamepad. It feels nice.
And you were saying before it has the capacitive joysticks like the Steam Deck does.
I think so, but I'm not certain. I just know that as soon as I rest my finger on it, even lightly,
that's it.
the Steam software immediately detects an input there.
Yeah, on the listing it lists it. Yeah.
So
that's them.
It's neat. It's a neat controller. I'm happy with it thus far. I am curious to continue playing with it. So far, I'm using it on my Steam Deck because my Steam Deck is permanently docked to my TV. It's not a portable device for me.
Yeah.
So I've been using it on my Steam Deck since that is the one device that will always be in Steam. So that has worked really well there. But because of that, I've been using my Steam Deck more. And because of that, I have been finding more issues and concerns with my Steam Deck. A bunch of these games that I keep seeing online, everybody's like, oh, this runs a perfect 60 frames per second consistently.
Yeah.
And then I load it up and it's like 18 frames a second. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And so I go find a guide and it's like, these are the exact settings you need to put in on Steam Deck for it to run exactly 60 frames a second. Then I do that and it's like 22 frames a second. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And it's frustrating. And I don't know.
Weird.
I legit don't know what I am doing wrong. It's
Like,
not like I've never used a computer before.
Have you thought about maybe like factory resetting it? Maybe you got some Linux thing fucked up somewhere?
That was my next thought, is maybe wiping it, or maybe I didn't even think about, are those games running off of my SD card? Maybe I have a shitty SD card in there.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing, and I forgot to mention this. My 1 terabyte SD card in my Steam Deck died.
Oh no.
And I had a 512 terabyte SD card in my, or 512 gigabyte.
512
terabytes.
That's a hell of an SD
512
card.
gigabyte SD card in my Steam Deck also die. That thing rips through SD cards. Also, I've always heard that higher capacity SD cards are more problematic.
Oof.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I've ripped through a terabyte and a half of SD cards on my Steam Deck. It just fucks them. I don't know if it's because it's always downloading updates and shit in the background and it stresses them, or I don't know what it is, but...
Yeah, I think I've got a 512 gig in my Steam Deck right now, and it's not quite full. The internal storage isn't quite full either, so maybe I could shuffle them around, see if they are on my SD card. I might move them over to the internal and see if they run any better.
Move them to internal and take your SD card completely out.
Fair.
Because my SD card fucked in such a way that it just made the whole thing run slow.
Oh, yeah,
which is very weird. And I think it has to do with how the Steam Deck is always perpetually mounting and reading to and from your SD cards when you have a library there, would be my only guess.
Possibly,
But I have had issues where just having the SD card in after it's been fuckered makes it just be more fuckered. Is the technical term.
One game that I was surprised, because I was playing some of Nier Automata and some of Control on there, because those are both games that people say run great on it, and I was struggling with them. I mean, they're still playable, but they're not great.
Now, I played Nier Automata on that Steam Deck.
Yeah.
The one you have.
Yeah, and I'm
my
struggling
old
to
one.
hit 15, 20 frames a second.
And I absolutely would not have played it at that lower frame
Yeah.
rate, and I remember it running really good. So something's definitely up.
Yeah. And then also, after I was playing some of those, I was like, you know what? I'm in the mood to replay Chrono Trigger. So I downloaded the Steam version of Chrono Trigger onto the Steam Deck, and it was struggling to hit 30 frames per second on
Yeah, you
Chrono
got
Trigger.
100% something's up. I would almost bet money that if you take your SD card out, instantly all your issues will be fixed.
Possibly. The other thing is that Steam controller, there is something about the default settings in Chrono Trigger on Steam that prevents the analog stick on that controller from controlling Chrono Trigger. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what's causing it. On my PC, if I load up the Steam version of Chrono Trigger, the same controller, analog works fine. I don't know what the difference is.
That's very weird.
Yeah. But other than that, it's been neat. It's been a neat controller. I've been enjoying playing with my Steam Deck, and now I am thinking I might have to get rid of its SD card and try it again and see if that changes anything.
Yeah, power it off entirely, take the SD card out,
Yeah.
boot it up. I bet you anything it fixes your
Man, I
issues
hope
like
so.
immediately. Because it's happened to me twice now where I've been like, why is my Steam Deck running like shit?
Yeah.
Everything's taking forever to load, everything's running slow, and it's like just the Steam UI running slow sometimes.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
I took
do
it
see
out.
some of that.
Both times I would take the SD card out and I go, oh, it's fixed immediately. So I bet you that's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the Steam Deck, but it seems to really. And granted, I've had a Steam Deck since Steam Deck's launched, and
Right.
I've had 2 SD cards destroyed
Right.
or worn out. SD cards, for people that don't know, they're not perpetual. You should replace them
No.
every year or two.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe the SD controller on there is
Maybe.
wonky too.
Possible.
Yeah.
I haven't looked anything up to verify any of this information,
Yeah.
but my 512 went bad on the Steam Deck that you got from me,
Yeah.
and my Terabyte went bad on my OLED, so
Yeah.
who the fuck knows?
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Um,
the SD card in my Switch is still doing fine all these years.
Oh yeah, mine
later.
too. Years and years and years old. It does
don't
great.
get it. Right.
To
I've still
be
got
fair, Steam games update fucking constantly.
Yes,
And
they're
I've got
giant.
120 of them installed, and Proton files always
Right.
being updated.
Yeah.
So like, it would make sense that it
Right.
really stresses an
Oh,
SD
yeah.
card way more than my Switch. I forgot to mention, I spent a whole day playing N64 PC ports.
Oh.
I downloaded that Star Fox 64 PC port. I went back and played more Super Mario 64 PC,
Yeah.
and I put in a good chunk of the day into Ship of Harkinian, their Ocarina of Time 64
Mhm.
PC port, which I had played previously, but they've added so much stuff to it. Saturn, it's so good.
Oh, they actually made it a good game. Weird.
It's so good. I honestly think, like, I don't think you're going to love it because I don't
Yeah.
think you love the game to begin with. But
Right.
with all the extras and cheats and options they put in the menus,
Yeah.
I think you would be able to turn off at least 3/4 of the things that you don't like about the game
Well, that is exciting.
by making combat dramatically easier. But there's like all kind of time-saving things like increasing how fast you climb ladders and shit.
But would you comparing it to the N64 version, or not the N64, the 3DS version?
I can't see myself going back to the 3DS version
Really?
after this version. Yeah, it's that good, and I loved the 3DS version.
All right.
They have added so much. They've also added online multiplayer.
How?
I don't know. They added a second mode where someone can play Ivan the Fairy, who your second player controller can move the fairy around on screen. Just weird. They've added insane shit. It's an incredible project. I wanted to mention it to you because I know you've always kind of disliked Ocarina but still wanted to have a way to experience it. With the amount of options and cheats they have available, I really think you could get it. Probably not something that's going to be your favorite Zelda ever,
Right.
but something that you could actually enjoy, I think.
Nice.
So
Can it make it 2D?
Well, technically it is 2D because screens only display in 2 dimensions,
That's not.
but
how
they
this
have the
works.
illusion of looking like they are in 3 dimensions.
I don't think you understand what I'm saying.
No, I understand. I think I'm just being an ass about it. Anyway, let's do some news.
Yeah.
Fatal Fury 2, Super Ninja Boy, and former Satellaview exclusive Sute Hakun were all added to Nintendo Switch Online. If anyone plays that, does anyone actually play Nintendo Switch Online? Are people
Somebody
doing
must
this?
be. That is exciting though that Sute Hakun got an international release and
Yep.
a digital release at all. I don't think it ever hit Virtual Console.
Yeah.
So that's so far as I know, even in Japan, it was only ever released on Satellaview and Nintendo Power. So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Sony is discontinuing the production of BDRs and BDREs, which are Blu-ray discs, and mini disc media and hardware. They were still making mini discs, and I wasn't fucking buying them.
I don't know what you were doing, man.
God, I loved mini disc. I had a mini disc player in high school, and I was like, "Fuck iPods, fuck MP3 players. This is way better." It wasn't. But I thought it was. For non-Americans, mini disc never took off here, and virtually no one even knew what the fuck it was.
Yeah. And
just to get
so
perspective.
of these, it is sad they finally are killing mini disc. But BDR and BDRE, I think other companies are still technically producing these.
Yeah.
I don't know who off the top of my head, but I think there are other companies still making writable Blu-ray media. But for mini disc, I think Sony was the last one.
Oh, they had to have been.
So this is
absolutely had to have been.
this is the end of that era. So if you want to get mini discs, now's the time before they get super
do.
expensive.
I do. I've already seen people reporting this as Sony no longer making physical media.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
That's not what this is. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Granted, I think we're, less than a decade from that,
Yeah.
but, is what it is. Ninja Gaiden 4 and Ninja Gaiden Black 2 announced at Microsoft's Developer Direct. Ninja Gaiden Black 2 was released immediately, and I've been hearing that it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. People like that.
Those
Ninja Gaiden
games
2.
are too hard for me. Just throwing that out
Yeah,
there.
me too. I really like them. They're really fun.
Yeah.
But they're way too hard.
Yeah.
I like the just getting to run around and hit people with nunchucks was so much fun.
Yeah.
I played huge amounts of Ninja Gaiden on Xbox, but I eventually quit because I couldn't beat it. So
Right. Oh,
you know
what?
I'm
I
a
forgot
baby
to
gamer.
mention one of the games I was playing was Before Your Eyes.
Oh.
I started playing that on PSVR. And
Yeah.
It is a game that I had wanted to play on PC, but I don't like to have my camera on ever.
Sure.
Have you heard of that game at all?
No.
It is a story-driven game where you're trying to figure out what is going on in this guy's life, like as he's about to enter the afterlife, and he's like, flashing back through all of his memories or whatever.
I can 100% tell you this would give me a panic attack.
But every time
I
you
can already tell.
every time you blink, whatever you were seeing is gone permanently. And as soon as you open your eyes again, it is something else. You're seeing a different scene, and you're trying to absorb as much as you can of that scene. But then as soon as you blink, it's on to the next scene. It's not every time you blink. Each scene has a certain period of time, and after you hit that period of time, the next blink ends it.
Yeah.
So it is a very strange and weird concept. And
It is
since
weird.
since the VR headset has the built-in camera, it is something I'm a little more willing to have it stare at me than my computer for some reason.
Yeah, for sure. For
Anyway,
sure. Have
sorry
you
about
tried
that.
painting eyeballs on your eyelids?
Oh, I should try
Like that one lady in that one Indiana Jones movie to see if it's able to tell that you've blinked or not.
PSVR is pretty stupid. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Dwarf Fortress Adventure Mode is finally out of beta.
Yeah.
And you can play it. And it's really fucking weird.
I'm glad I only had to put Dwarf Fortress Adventure Mode in the news notes and knew that you would know enough about what to say about it from there.
It's been in beta for a while. Adventure Mode has existed in the free version of the game for a number of years. I don't want to call it a roguelike. It's kind of like a roguelike smushed with a Bethesda game.
Just when we discovered last episode, everything is a roguelike.
Everything is roguelike. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything's an Xbox, and
Yes.
everything's a roguelike. New
Correct.
roguelike Ninja Gaiden Black 2 released on every Xbox in the world, which is everything.
Correct, yes.
It's the adventure mode is so wild because it has conversation trees built in, but you can talk about anything to someone that your character knows about. So as expected from anything Dwarf Fortress branded, the depth is kind of like staggering. It does make it a little tedious to play adventure mode, but Dwarf Fortress has never tried to not be tedious. It's just kind of a tedious game, but you just kind of got to like dig in. It's really cool. I tried to play a little bit of it on Steam Deck. The controls are so complicated I couldn't really do much, even though they have a pretty decent layout. It seems like the kind of thing that you'd want to really understand the game first and then try to figure out the Steam Deck layout for. But yeah, very excited about that. Another Resident Evil film reboot announced because why the fuck not? Let's just keep fucking doing everything over and over again for forever.
Well, you know why,
This is
right?
No, I don't know why.
Oh, it's because if Sony doesn't release a Resident Evil movie every so often, they lose the rights.
Oh, it's an X-Men thing.
Yeah, so every few years, they're just like, we got to pump out some Resident Evil movie, and nobody's going to watch a sequel to that last one, so reboot it again.
What I don't understand is, why do you want to keep the rights to a thing that you clearly don't fucking like?
Right?
Like, you don't want it. You're not doing... This is just like
you don't
some
understand.
bully...
They want the money from it. They don't want to
I
put
can't
money
imagine they're
into making
much
it work.
money. This is just like if a bully stole your Game Boy and then just wiped his ass with it. You'd be like, at least play fucking games on it. Don't just take it
See,
and destroy it.
They keep hoping that these shitty reboots make money. They just don't want to spend money on them to make the money. They just want the money to happen. And they know that if they give it up, then there's no chance of the money happening.
I'm willing to bet there's already almost no chance of the money happening. Just gonna throw that out there. A Game Boy D-make of Signalis has released. Signalis was a game you were talking about
Yes.
like several episodes ago, right?
Yeah, like almost a year ago now.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a kind of an indie horror PS1 style game. And it's neat. It's a very neat game. I think the demake is only based on the demo of it, since the game has got some depth to it. But it looks really neat. I might have to try this out on an emulator or something.
I had looked this Signalis up on Wikipedia, and I saw the awards it won, and one of them is the Chumley's Speakeasy Award for Best Hidden Gem, awarded at the 12th Annual New York Game Awards.
Thanks,
which have been
Chumley.
running consecutively since 2012, and I've never heard of them.
Yeah. Well,
No
that's because
fucking
Chumley hasn't
idea.
invited us yet.
Right. Well, maybe one day. M2 and Compile Heart are working on a new shmup called Zeleste, said to be a fusion of Compile's Xanac and Aleste franchises.
I'm here for
which is
it.
very exciting.
Yeah.
I like M2. I like Compile. This is going to be good times.
Yeah.
Expected to release on PS4, PS5, and Switch this year.
Yes.
Also, EA is bringing The Sims and The Sims 2 back to PC along with all of their expansions. I have a secret, though. They never left PC if you just pirate them. The
That's
pirated
true.
versions work great.
Yeah.
And they include all the expansions, and
Right.
it's good. It's good. They work great. But cool, I guess, if you want to download EA's fucking launcher. Have they said if they're going to put them on Steam or
Probably
any
not. I
other
don't know.
GOG, maybe? Or
I mean,
GOG would be a great choice.
I think EA has put some stuff on GOG, so there's a chance it might end up there. It was part of a EA retro something event that they were doing that I paid no attention to because EA.
It's EA, yeah.
But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how they release it.
Yeah. Dino Crisis 1 and 2 were surprise dropped on GOG, which is always good to see. Always good to see that. And I hear that it was related to this next news piece, which GOG has rebranded their community wish list as the GOG Dream List and is bringing more attention to it. The idea is that the community can go and vote on and ask for games that aren't on GOG to show interest to publishers.
Right.
And they had said that Dino Crisis landing there was because of their community wish list.
Yeah. And they've had the community wish list for years. And if you had voted for things on it, your votes have carried over to the Dream List. You don't have to go vote for things again. If you go to it, any of the things you voted for already have your upvote on them.
Yeah.
But
the Dino Crisis bundle they have is one of the good old games, certified games, which we talked about an episode or two ago.
Yeah.
I think this is cool. I think this is a cool idea. I like that they're doing it.
Right.
I like anything that lets us, the public, more directly tell publishers, like, hey, we will spend money on this if you just give it to us.
Right.
So that's all
Now, the downside is there's still Dino Crisis.
Oh, Saturn, why are you so mean to Dino Crisis?
Because I've played it.
I've never played it. Is it that bad?
It tries to be Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You say it's bad, and then you say it's Resident Evil with dinosaurs, as if that doesn't make it 1,000 times more compelling immediately.
Yeah, I'm not interested at all.
What? So what you're telling me is it's probably fucking awesome, and you just are.
The third
don't
Dino
like dinosaurs.
Crisis is dinosaurs in space.
What the fuck is your problem?
It's the worst. It's so
What is your
bad.
problem,
Oh
Seth?
my
This
God.
is incredible.
That's so bad.
This is the best thing I've heard since the Leprechaun in Space, which was equally as good.
Oh no, it's so
Listen.
bad. You remember the one, Friday the 13th movie in space? What was that one?
Jason X, it was
Oh
great.
God, it was the worst.
You remember that scene where he put that one camper in a sleeping bag and then beat another camper to death with the sleeping bag?
That's so bad.
Oh, it was fucking fantastic. I think what I'm
worst.
learning is I need to buy and play Dino Crisis. This is what I've learned right now.
You
You
could-
sold
you
me
could
on
just-
it with your disinterest.
As we mentioned a moment ago, it's always been available thanks to the power of piracy. It's not like it's suddenly available now. But this is I believe the first time it's ever been ported to PC natively, because originally they were just PS1 games and Dreamcast games.
I was looking at their Dreamless thing. It's very official. They got it all ranked, and they've got vote numbers next to it. Like the top votes are Freelancer, Resident Evil Code Veronica X, Command & Conquer Ultimate Collection, Final Fantasy VII, and The Operative No One Lives Forever.
That game will never get released.
Oh, I see.
I wish it would. It's a great game. Will not get released.
I see.
Because there is some issues rights-wise, because it was and that's not even their top list. That's just their picks.
Oh,
But,
I see. Yeah.
but no, the game was developed by Monolith, who is now a part of Warner Brothers, and it was published by Fox Interactive, who was partially sold off to Vivendi Universal, who is now part of Microsoft, and partially sold off to Disney, who is now part of Disney. And also there's another company that got crammed in there somehow. Anyway, multiple different companies. None of them know who owns it. All of them claim they own it. And no one can get the rights to do anything. Night Dive tried to do something with it a few years ago. It's just never going to happen.
I looked down. The actual top vote is Black and White, and then Command and Conquer Ultimate, Black and White 2, Freelancer, The Operative, and then Grim Fandango, and then Diablo 2. I would love to get a DRM-free version of Diablo 2. That would be awesome.
Yeah, No One Lives Forever and No One Lives Forever 2 would be great games to release on GOG. They were both pretty fun and campy. They're basically like a slightly more serious Austin Powers. But I just don't see it happening. I don't see the stars aligning for that.
Atari is releasing a physical special edition of their recent Power Rangers game, which is cool.
Yeah, I've heard it's all right.
Pick that
I'm
up.
not
I heard
a
it's
big
pretty
Power
good.
Rangers fan, though. So
Because you're big wrongy. I think we've established that when you said dinosaurs in space wasn't awesome.
thank
So
you.
I think you revealed your true colors. A Mario Strikers clone called Mariostro Strikers Soccer League was released digitally on Xbox with awful AI art because this is where we are.
I'm sure it won't last very long, but it's still that's brazen. That's a bold move from whoever that group is.
Forza
Granted,
Horizon.
people also used to just blatantly release emulators
true.
on the Xbox store,
That's
so you
true.
know.
Yeah. Forza Horizon coming to the PS5 this spring, that's very shocking.
Well, there've been
that-
rumors about it for a little while now, and those same rumors say that Halo Master Chief Collection is right behind it for both
That would be-
PS5 and
that's-
Switch.
Now the PS5 is an Xbox 2, Saturn.
That's what they keep saying.
Sony confirms that the anniversary themes for PS5 are still being removed at the end of February, but says they're, quote, doing some behind-the-scenes work to bring them back in the future? How about you just don't fucking take them away?
Yeah. What
It's
behind-the-scenes
less-
work do you have to do, Sony? You're the ones who control this entire ecosystem.
It's less work to just not remove it. Just don't
Right.
do anything and go, yeah, keep them. We don't fucking care.
Yeah, I don't know what they're trying to say here. It's the
And
dumbest shit.
finally, Ridge Racer 64 added to Nintendo Switch Online++. If you want to play that,
Yeah.
you can. It's out there. It exists.
I never tried the 64 version. I tried the PS1 version, and it was racing.
It's racing. You got it, dude. Which brings us to our topic at hand.
Does it?
Which
Is
is-
this racing too?
This is racing too. It brings us to Opa-Opa, the protagonist, the hero, sometimes antagonist of Fantasy Zone, one of the deepest lores of any Sega character outside of Sonic the Hedgehog. And we're going to go through it today. What?
Did he spend 10 years in prison as well? Like Kiryu?
I don't know. Well, we'll talk about it. We're gonna talk about some stuff. There's some shit in this mythos. It is weird. For synopsis, Saturn wrote, kind of like that sentient spaceship from Flight of the Navigator, but more serious.
Yeah.
I
hold by that.
I don't know if Opa-Opa is more serious.
Definitely more serious.
But Opa-Opa is serious. So, I do have stats. Opa-Opa is 38 centimeters high, which is 14.9 inches, 40 centimeters wide, which is 15.7 inches, and 52 centimeters long, which is 20.5 inches. Opa-Opa has wings that are 19 centimeters, which is 7.4 inches each. And Opa-Opa weighs 16.8 kilograms, which is a shocking 37 pounds. Very, very dense.
Yeah. For how tiny he is.
As far as first encounters, as we stated in the previous episode, I had Fantasy Zone on NES growing up, and I was fascinated by Opa-Opa as a character. I was fascinated by the weird dissonance between the Opa-Opa on the cartridge, which looked like a housefly, a robot housefly spaceship.
With a dude in it.
And then in the game, it was this cute little thing that had like feet and shit, and I could not reconcile it. So I've always
That
been a
was-
little fascinated with Opa-Opa as a character.
That was a pretty common thing, though, at the time, where the box art would look much more serious than the games, like Wizards and Warriors.
Yeah, most definitely. I don't think it's an oddity in that regard,
No,
but
not at all.
still, it's just one of those things that I was always just. I always kind of wanted to know more. I was like, I can tell there's some effort put into this character, and there wasn't a lot. We also didn't have the manuals, so that didn't help
Oh
either.
yeah, I looked up the manual for the Tingen version of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's 4 pages.
How bad is it?
There's like nothing there.
Oh, okay.
It's
All
it's
right,
basically
well.
there's no art at all.
Yeah.
Aside from the cover art, and it's basically just like shoot the enemies. Good luck. Yeah.
Do you want to talk first encounters for Opa-Opa?
I-
As far as
you
like
know-
Opa-Opa as a character?
I don't know that I ever really thought about Opa-Opa as a character back in the day. It was always
Mhm.
just that ship from Fantasy Zone, just like the Vic Viper is that ship from Gradius, and I had not really considered Opa-Opa as a character until I started seeing him as a cameo in things like PSO,
Mm-hmm.
and then like a little under a year ago, I had watched a deep dive on Zillion on YouTube and was like, what is going on here? Why are they treating Opa-Opa as a character in Zillion? None of this makes sense.
Uh-huh.
So that's about as far as I have gotten.
All right. We're gonna jump into appearances because obviously Opa-Opa appears in the main games and the spin-off games. So we Opa-Opa is mostly the protagonist of the Fantasy Zone games.
Right.
Not all of them, but most of them.
Mhm.
Opa-Opa also appears in Red Photon Zillion, which is what year was that one?
Mid late 80s.
It felt late 80s. I want to say it was like 87, 88 or something, like a year or two after the first Fantasy Zone game.
That feels late. It was 87. It was
Okay,
87.
yeah. And so traditionally Opa-Opa is a red spaceship with a green bottom and a blue windscreen
Yeah.
and 2 little feet and
Mhm.
2 little feathery bird-looking wings.
The wings feel optional. 'Cause he doesn't
That
always
is-
have them, and you
that's
can
true.
buy them in the store.
That is true. Well, you buy the big wings.
That's
in the
true.
store.
You buy the
start
bigger
with the
ones.
small wings.
Right, yeah.
Opa-Opa also appears in such a long list of games. I didn't even put it here. We're talking Samba de Amigos, Sega Splash Golf.
I have a list at the
cameos
bottom.
in Alien Syndrome. Oh, you got them down there.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
good. But I want to talk about kind of the anatomy of Opa-Opa as a character. And in the original concept art for the character, we find a very strange and different looking Opa-Opa. Now, I found this in a second Fantasy Zone interview on Shmupulations.
Okay.
Now, all of this is translated via Google Translate. There are words on all of the art that I've downloaded. We also have, if you want to pull up the supplemental materials that I made, there's a timeline that I created in the folder, along with the manuals and art, so that you can follow along. So in this original art, the first idea was that Opa-Opa was just going to be like the head of a spaceman. Right? And here, I think I have a quote here. Here we go. Quote, concept art showing the evolution of Opa-Opa's character with comments by designer Masaki Kondo. The first rough sketch of Opa-Opa shown on the left actually envisioned him as a pilot. Kondo was bad at drawing faces, so he drew him without a head. Then the next sketch here we see with a metal hatch shows the Soyokaze 1, the craft that Opa-Opa was originally supposed to pilot. So that was Opa-Opa's ship that
before he was
piloted.
the ship. Yeah.
The middle 2 sketches were done by other designers entirely, which is kind of different ideas. One of them looks kind of weird and alien. Another one looks a little closer to what we get, which is like Opa-Opa is like a guy in a round spaceman suit with wings holding a gun.
This is like how Mega Man used to hold a gun.
And then the final sketches on the right show Opa-Opa's evolution from a mechanical craft with a pilot to an anthropomorphized entity and more closely approach the finished design. Although Sega does not stick to that, and I've got things to say about that. So, first of all, Opa-Opa and his family are often referred to as sentient spaceships They're even depicted as having like kind of eyes within their windshields. They're rarely like real pupilled eyes, but they're kind of like, it almost looks like glare that looks like eyes inside their windshield. But there are also depictions that seem to show a cockpit, which implies that Opa-Opa and by extension others in the family may or may not be piloted. Okay, so if we look at the ending screen of Galactic Protector, the game shows Opa-Opa and his brother, Opa-Opa, next to each other, but Opa-Opa's cockpit is clearly open and shows a seat and controls, and I have a screenshot of it here.
Yeah, see that.
And this was a Sega Master System game, and so you can see that they are spaceships, not sentient in this one. Also weirdly depicted with the jet engine instead of the wings, but also Opa-Opa looked kind of weird in Galactic Protector to begin with.
And also, do we consider every appearance canon?
Here's the thing about Fantasy Zone lore.
Yeah.
There is no canon.
Right. That's
We're
the
making the canon. This is the canon. We're creating this. All right.
Okay.
Which brings us to Red Photon Zillion. I watched most of Red Photon Zillion's 31 episodes, and I skimmed through all of them at least a couple times. In Red Photon Zillion, Opa-Opa is a minor character, barring a couple of episodes that have some focus on him. There's one near the end. And he definitely seems like a sentient mechanical device. His wings and feet protrude from slits in his exterior that don't appear to be like sealed against the elements or the vacuum of space or whatever. He has very clearly distinct eyes in this incarnation, like round white circles.
They look really weird.
The JJ, Champ, and Apple, who are the three protagonists of Red Photon Zillion, who are known as the White Nuts. I'm not making this up. JJ, Champ, and Apple are the protagonists. They're a member of the White Nuts organization fighting back against aliens that are seeking to destroy them. They often treat Opa-Opa like a child. Opa-Opa talks about...
Justin, how do you feel when you encounter White Nuts?
I encounter White Nuts every day. It's a constant battle with White Nuts. It's terrible.
Just fighting off White Nuts all the time.
They stick to everything. There is one episode in that Apple gets hurt. And Opa-Opa talks about Apple being broken, which hints at Opa-Opa's mechanical nature in this version. The idea that a mechanical creature would think of another creature being wounded as being broken instead of being hurt.
Yeah, that's what the part that I saw of it.
And then at one point, this was amazing. Opa-Opa opens up in a section where it's facing off against this creature, and it opens up to add angry eyebrows to its windshield to make its eyes look angry.
Yeah.
And when it opens up, we get a small peek inside of Opa-Opa,
all the gears and stuff,
at his mechanical guts. And these two little weird noodly arms come out and put these eyebrows on. And it's the only time that I've seen inside of Opa-Opa except for the end of Galactic Protector.
Right. Which implies that one of these things has to contradict the other.
Right. So right now we have basically multiple versions of Opa-Opa. The anatomy of Opa-Opa, right? For anyone that's like, man, Justin seems like he didn't really play through all of these games he talked about last episode. It's because I was spending all my time doing this. I was looking at every picture of Opa-Opa I could find. I was going through every manual. I was translating stuff. I was watching Red Photon Zillion.
For some
the games were just the shit I had to get out of the way to get to this.
I don't know why you wasted so much of your life on Zillion though.
I don't feel like it
did
was
you
a
play
waste.
the Zillion games?
No, I didn't play that.
Because
I
it's
watched
based
the
on the
anime.
games.
No, I know that, but I wasn't here for the Zillion game. I was here for Opa-Opa in the anime. I will say, if you're gonna watch the anime for Opa-Opa, it's not. It's not a great show. It's like a late 80s, action anime kind of thing.
Yep.
It's just not spectacular.
No.
Opa-Opa reminds me a lot of, I forget the name. There's a mechanical ball character in Mobile Suit Gundam that is kind of the childlike sidekick character. Kind of in the same way that like the monkey is in Speed Racer, stuff like that. And Opa-Opa feels very much like that. Whatever TV tropes article that is what Opa-Opa feels like in Red Photon Zillion. What I was frustrated about is there's one scene where Opa-Opa is pictured next to Opa-Opa in Red Photon Zillion, and I could not find that scene. I thought it was episodes 24 and 25, which mostly focus on Opa-Opa, and then I thought maybe it was the beach episode where Opa-Opa goes to the beach. But it's not anywhere. But basically, it's an anime about a lecherous teenager named JJ leering at women and shooting aliens with a gun that was both given to them by God and also made by humans, and they can only make 3 of them, and God gives them the ammo, maybe, but also they make the ammo, but something.
It's basically a standard anime plot for the mid-'80s.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It makes no fucking sense.
No.
In every episode, it's just, oh no, we've been invaded. Oh, shoot them with your fancy gun. Okay, cool. Later on, they get power suits and stuff. We're not here to talk about Red Photon Zillion. It's not great. It's not awesome.
Right.
5 episodes came out in the U.S. The rest are subtitled. We also got the OVA, and there's a box set that I think Crunchyroll sells right now that you can pick up that's got all of it, which I almost bought to look at Opa-Opa in high definition, but I resisted the urge because it wouldn't ship in time even with expedited shipping. I tried. This is all beside the point.
What is the point?
We need to talk about things.
Okay.
We need to talk about the other characters in the Opa-Opa verse.
Okay.
Opa-Opa is one of the other main prominent characters in the Fantasy Zone universe. This is Opa-Opa's younger brother. First appeared as the protagonist of Fantasy Zone The Maze, and I put Galactic Protector, but I believe Galactic Protector, it might have been Oopa. I forget now if it was Oopa-Oopa or Opa-Opa. They look very similar. Shockingly, they look quite similar. The difference being that Oopa-Oopa is different colors. So Oopa-Oopa is
It's the palette swap.
A palette swap. I've also seen Oopa-Oopa shown with a blue backside and a green belly, but a lot of times you see him with a green backside and a red belly, which is kind of the inverse of Opa-Opa.
Right.
And we get some information. A lot of this is manual stuff that I've taken from manuals because it's really the only time that you get to see the story in a readable format. Because the games will also, when you enter a level, say some story, but it's just really fast and you can't read it all. So in 3D Fantasy Zone, Opa-Opa Brothers, this is the first Fantasy Zone on 3DS. It adds Oopa-Oopa as a playable character. And we have some story here. And I'm going to go through the storylines as presented in the 2 3DS games.
Okay.
So in the space year 1423, following Opa-Opa's adventure the year earlier, the Fantasy Zone was once again, this is Fantasy Zone 2.
Okay.
No, wait.
What?
This was, what was this for? This was for Oopa-Oopa mode. Yeah, in the space year 1423, following Opa-Opa's adventure the year earlier, the Fantasy Zone was once again cast in panic at the collapse of the interplanetary monetary system. And one day, Oopa-Oopa looked at his older brother's bank account and was surprised as his savings were preposterously high, deciding to save the Fantasy Zone from the Minon forces instead of Opa-Opa, despite doubting what will happen if he runs out of money and his brother finds out. However, after defeating the invading army, Oopa-Oopa realized that his mother was the chief of the enemy forces who scolded him for wasting money from Opa-Opa's bank account without his permission, following with him getting chased by his older brother as he bombards him with weapons. Now, here's the weird thing.
Okay.
This is the only mention I could ever find of their mother. Normally, at the end of Fantasy Zone, you fight Opa-Opa, which is Oopa-Oopa and Opa-Opa's father. This time, presumably, it's still Opa-Opa. They just go, it's Oopa-Oopa, so it'll be the mom this time, right? So this is a story that was added to the 3DS version for the Oopa-Oopa mode, okay? And then also added to Fantasy Zone 2W, the Tears of Opa-Opa, it gets this. In the space year 1433, 10 years after his battle with the Menon invaders, and a year after Opa-Opa faced his bad self, Dark Opa-Opa, Opa-Opa discovered a new planet called the Endless Zone. This is for Link Loop Land mode, which promises vast riches to be found and has attracted explorers from all over the universe despite its dangers. He flew there in search of coins to accrue enough money to pay back his absurdly large debt to his brother Opa-Opa by taking on an infinite number of enemies. So Opa-Opa is like the broke-ass little brother that's always borrowing cash. And
meanwhile, Opa-Opa is getting on with his bad self.
This is the most information we ever get about Opa-Opa on his own, right?
Yeah. He's the Barney Gumble to Opa-Opa's
right.
Homer. Yeah.
So the next one is Opa-Opa. Now, Opa-Opa in a very Darth Vader type situation is revealed as the leader of the Menon forces. The Menons are the big bad guy. This is the name of the enemy forces.
Right. It's
I've
also
seen it
company
spelled
that makes the deodorant.
I've also seen it spelled as Nenon, which I think might just be a mistranslation in some of the manuals, but I'm not sure. But at the end of Fantasy Zone, which we're going to get into the full story of all of the games in a minute, we see Opa-Opa, and they have a bit of a strained relationship that leads to the emotional turmoil that lays the groundwork for Fantasy Zone 2, which we'll talk about shortly.
All right.
Also, after reuniting with Opa-Opa and seeing his son overcome his demons in Fantasy Zone 2 and working to stop the Menon forces, Opa-Opa is eventually has some stuff happen to him during the events of Super Fantasy Zone. There's also Harrier. Now, as stated in the previous game, Space Harrier and Fantasy Zone are not related outside of the name. But then they made Planet Harriers in 2000, and they were also working on Space Fantasy Zone.
Yeah, because so clearly somebody at Sega decided they were related, even if the official word is that they are not.
But we have no real story. In Planet Harriers, Opa-Opa appears in the game in the shops, is playable with a special code. This creates a direct connection between the characters. So there's a chance one or more of the areas in Space Harrier canonically are within Fantasy Zone, and we know Fantasy Zone to be a collection of planets.
Yeah. And we've also seen the zones from Fantasy Zone as a special bonus stage in Space Harrier.
Yeah. We also have Opa-Opa's son, Opapa's grandson, Opa-Opa Jr., who's the protagonist of Fantasy Zone Gear, which is the Game Gear Fantasy Zone. And then you also have Dark Opa-Opa, which is Opa-Opa's evil self in Fantasy Zone 2W.
I have criticisms with the naming scheme. Because
Why?
if the father is Opa-Opa and the son is Opa-Opa, shouldn't the grandson be Opa-Opa?
Nope. Opa-Opa Jr.
No, I don't buy it.
I want to go through the entire story of Fantasy Zone from the manuals.
Oh, no.
If you'll allow me.
Please. I want to see exactly how off the rails this gets.
Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that these dates are off compared to the previous dates by about 5,000 years.
That's a rounding error.
As far as I can tell, Sega rolled back the galactic clock by about 5,000 years.
500 episodes in, we still have to stop to laugh at cock for a second.
But originally it was in the 6,000s.
Okay, yeah.
So in Fantasy Zone, it goes, long ago, far away in space, there existed a fantasy zone where a courageous hero called Opa-Opa fought in a valiant cause to rescue the fantasy zone from its enemies. These are the Menons. In the space year 6216, the interplanetary monetary system collapsed, causing all the planets to become panic-stricken. You'll notice similarities to the Opa-Opa mode story.
A lot of focus on monetary policy in these games.
According to an official inquiry made by the Space Guild, someone is leading the Menon planet forces, using them to steal foreign currencies of the other planets, and with the funds, constructing a huge fortress in the Fantasy Zone. This is the last level, the 8th level of Fantasy Zone. You're in the fortress.
Yeah.
To put an end to their ambitious plans, Opa-Opa promptly takes off for the Fantasy Zone, where? And then the game starts, right?
Okay.
So everyone knows that. Space year 6216. If you look on the chart here, that's the first Fantasy Zone thing. This is the first war with the Menons. Right. This is when we discover that at the end, the Dark Master is Opa-Opa. It's Opa-Opa's father. And comes out in like is all black and gray and evil looking. Right. Yeah. Then we get Fantasy Zone 2. In Fantasy Zone 2, it's been 10 years since Opa-Opa returned to his homeland, and now he's back. which implies that Opa-Opa does not live in the fantasy zone.
Oh yeah.
He returned. So the way I read this, it's been 10 years since he returned. You could read it two ways. You could read it as he left 10 years ago after Fantasy Zone to his home and then came back, or you could read it as 10 years ago he returned home and now he's back home again. It could kind of go either way.
To me, it sounds like he went back to his homeland, but now he's back in wherever the action is taking place, which is presumably the fantasy zone.
You could read. It's very easy to read it as Opa-Opa is not of the fantasy zone,
right?
Which is an interesting revelation on its own. I think honestly, it's just poor wording. I think they're trying to say Opa-Opa came to and then left, but the way it's written, but it's not the same place he left behind. They say a group of black hearts have joined forces to take over today's fantasy zone, and Opa-Opa must defend the city gates once again and save his crazy kaleidoscope of creatures from the brink of disaster. Only mention of the black hearts I've ever seen. I don't know what city gates they're talking about. All the planets are different planets, so I don't know what that means.
All the planets are in a city.
You'll have several interconnected warp gates to enter before you can reach and destroy the black hearts. So plan for a long and difficult battle of wits and strength, and remember, look but don't touch. These critters are dangerous. So this is Fantasy Zone 2. It's been 10 years. Okay, when this all happens.
And now Opa-Opa is fighting Doctor Strange's enemy, Blackheart.
In the course of Fantasy Zone 2, specifically Fantasy Zone 2 DX and 2W, you can choose to go through the light levels or the dark levels. If you go through all the light levels, then Opa-Opa does not confront his own dark feelings about his father from the first game being the leader of the evil Menon forces.
Yeah. And
you become Dark Opa-Opa as you play. So I have screenshots.
Morality meter.
I have screenshots from the game.
Okay.
So as you play through, you get little bits more of what Opa-Opa has going on. And in the game, it calls them the Nenon forces. It says
that's
the
probably
planet is
just
under
a
domination.
translation issue, though,
But
right?
this is the 3DS version.
Oh.
You think it would be fixed. So here we go. Opa-Opa felt something wrong. Small-sized boss have a function for collecting fragments of boss's information. It was not possible that Boss Papa wasn't yet restored after 10 years had elapsed. And then it struck Opa-Opa as incongruous that one planet had a dual structure. Indeed, one planet has a multiple structure, can exist, but generally its areas don't interfere with each other. This is text in the game.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that it's all bad translation because none of this is English.
It seems very bad.
Yeah.
But basically, at the end of the game, you if you go through all the dark levels, you fight Dark Opa-Opa and you overcome the depression and sadness that you have from living with 10 years knowing that your father was the leader of the financial collapse of the Intergalactic Bank in the first Menon Wars in 6216.
Yeah.
So it gets dark. And at the end of the game, to defeat Dark Opa-Opa and get the good ending, because there's two endings, right? To defeat Dark Opa-Opa and get the good ending, you have to buy your own tier in the shop. And then after you defeat Dark Opa-Opa, cry your tear onto him, thus expressing the emotions that you've been holding back for 10 years to overcome your own darkness.
How much do your tiers cost?
I know 16,000 coins. I don't remember. I don't remember
That's
exactly.
Pretty good going rate for my tiers, I guess.
And so it gets dark.
Yeah,
but it gets darker. In Super Fantasy Zone, I'm going to read to you the Super Fantasy Zone story. Okay. Opa-Opa, the legendary warrior, had led his troops in their defense of the Fantasy Zone against an attack by the Dark Menon and his forces. It is now space year 6230X. A science patrol bound for New Bolin ran into some unexpected trouble. They were ambushed by a craft that they thought were simply space pirates. Nevertheless, they were not equipped for battle. So this we've introduced intergalactic banks. We've introduced the fact that Opa-Opa and his ilk can feel depression and darkness. We've introduced the idea of space pirates.
Oh, is it the same space pirates that Samus is always fighting?
I don't know. It might be.
I have to assume yes.
Anyway,
you can't have two groups with the same name. That's illegal.
Opa-Opa runs into these pirates. His transmissions ended there. Communications lost. Opa-Opa, now of advanced age and waning skills, was called once again. He led a medium-sized defense flight toward Region 3, wherever the fuck that is. That implies a Region 1 and 2. He arrived. The Science Patrol hadn't been pirated. Dark Minon had returned. Stronger than ever, Opa-Opa and his overmatched squadron fought valiantly, but they never had a chance. Opa-Opa gets mortally wounded in battle, returns home, and Opa-Opa, son of Opa-Opa, watched as his late father came home for the last time. He looked at the sky through tear-filled eyes and vowed to put an end to Dark Minon and his sinister plans once for all. So much to talk about.
Yeah.
So much to talk. First of all, watched his dad die.
Yeah.
From being mortally wounded. And then who the fuck is Dark Minon? Was that not Opa-Opa? Who is Dark Minon? They were just called the Minons before, but now they're the Dark Minons, but also they're the Nenons? So presumably they have some new leader. And then we move forward a little bit to Fantasy Zone Gear. This is 62. No, it's not 6216. It's 6343.
Okay.
In the year 6216, which you'll remember as the first Fantasy Zone, tumultuous events in the history of space finally came to a close. The hero Opa-Opa had won the long drawn-out battle, blah, 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 recapture Fantasy Zone. We know all this.
Right.
Things lived in peace. It is now 6344, somewhere around 10 years after Opa-Opa's death. Trouble is threatening to strike Fantasy Zone once again. Somewhere someone is trying to take control of the zone. Now it's just called the zone. The fantasy is gone. Rumors of impending doom are heard everywhere. And as if to verify the rumors, strange things are beginning to happen in the Fantasy Zone. Just as the rumors finally reached Opa-Opa Jr., the legendary hero's son, Opa-Opa Jr.'s friends began to disappear one at a time. Finally, his father also disappeared. One day later, a letter arrived. So they also have mail and can write letters and have written language.
Yeah.
And it read, Fantasy Zone will be converted into Fantasy Zone Gear according to our plans. Your fathers are captive. He will be of no help to you if you try to resist us. You have 1 week to decide what to do. They're ransoming this guy. We suggest that you surrender. Opa-Opa Jr. didn't hesitate for an instant. He would never surrender, not in 1,000 years. He set out to defeat the enemy from Menon to save his father and friends, as far as I know. This is as far as the Fantasy Zone storyline goes. It ends with Opa-Opa Jr. taking on the bad guys in Fantasy Zone Gear. So we've established so much. We've established intergalactic banking. We've established mail systems. We've established written language. We've floated the possibility that Opa-Opa may not be of the Fantasy Zone. We've established that Opa-Opa in some incarnations may be a piloted thing. You know,
I'm not sure we've established anything.
We've established so much, Saturn. So much.
We've established contradictions.
And the story is so dark and sad. The first game is a financial crisis. The second game is split personality, depression, and arguably, you're fighting your own dark self.
Right.
So that, and then the next game, Super Fantasy Zone, your dad just dies. You destroy your dark self by crying on it. And then your son has to come save you from being ransomed in the zone. It's dark as fuck. Yeah. Opa-Opa goes through some shit.
Yeah.
If Opa-Opa had a mouth, he would frown. That's what I think would happen.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I struggle to decide if any of this is canon at this point. Because it feels like the writers never bothered to think about whether or not any of it would be canon.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I did have some promotional images. I was hoping to reveal some story information about the games by Google translating some of these promotional images. Most of these are from Sunsoft. I didn't really get anything. It's just bad translations. A colorful disc with a tough guy and a soft guy. Just do it. This is the ad for the FDS version of Fantasy Zone.
They want us to just do it.
The everlasting hit Fantasy Zone, now available on the Famicom. There just wasn't much to find.
Yeah.
A mysterious evil hand suddenly creeps onto a peaceful planet. Hero Opa-Opa used the parts to thwart your something. So, you know, there's something. There's some storyline
I use
there.
the parts to thwart my something all the time.
This is my favorite one is the much talked about high-tech shooting. Pleasure for the eyes, ears, and whole body.
I'm glad you said body.
Invincible with weapons, the hero Opa-Opa's hilarious spectacle. You know that hilarious financial crisis that led to a kinetic war in the Fantasy Zone?
Look, as long as you as long as you don't look into the details at all, it's a hilarious adventure.
And this one does reiterate the same story. In the Space Series 6216, a mysterious evil hand suddenly approaches. Who on Earth could it be? And it doesn't mention the financial crisis so much, right?
Well, we'd gotten past that.
Well, no, this was for the first Fantasy Zone. This was the...
I know, but as a society, we decided to just look past it.
But yeah, there wasn't much elsewhere. I was hoping I could find some guides or mangas that had some stuff, but there's just not a lot going on.
On the bright side, you have officially done more research into the story of Fantasy Zone than anyone at Sega ever has.
I think I might know more about it than them. And I will say, Fantasy Zone 2, in addition to being my favorite game in the series, is also thematically, story-wise, the darkest. Because when you complete it and you get the bad ending, like, there's a whole blurb where, like, it talks about you giving into your dark feelings and hold on, I have it. It's a video on my phone. Hold on, I got to scrub through the video. Here we go. Opa-Opa no longer has any goodness and mercy at all. The one-time hero changed into the incarnation of evil. All he wanted was to destroy the Fantasy Zone that he had fought for and protected, and he annihilated his opponents, including the space... It says guiled, but I think they mean guild. In this version, Opa-Opa, in in the other version, Opa-Opa overcomes his dark feelings. But in this universe B of Fantasy Zone, which we've established must exist because of the dual endings, right? Opa-Opa destroys the space guild, presumably guiled, presumably creating more intergalactic financial turmoil.
So if Opa-Opa ended up in Silent Hill, what kind of manifestations do you think he would see?
I don't know, man. Poor guy's been through a lot, from hanging out with Apple and the White Nuts and putting on angry eyebrows to crying tears on his own dark self to make it explode to overcome the betrayal of his father.
I don't know how else you could make it explode.
There's a lot. There's a lot of things going on, man. My only regret is I didn't get to play all the way through. I played Fantasy Zone 2 5 times for the show. Fantasy Zone 1 a few times. I didn't get through Fantasy Zone Gear to see if there was any like story at the end. It sets it up. I'm not sure who the last boss is in that one, is what I'm trying to get around to. In fact, let me see. I wonder if I can look it up right now.
Is there a port to the Master System of Fantasy Zone
no,
Gear?
Fantasy Zone Gear, as far as I know, only exists because there was some weird stuff in the Fantasy Zone Gear. Yes. We see Opa-Opa Jr., we see Opa-Opa, and then we see this third ship that I think is I don't know who it is. It's possibly Opa-Opa again. I wanted to get through this. I didn't get through this one. I was very upset. But there's also an ending where you see a bunch of Opa-Opas. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, which implies families of Opa-Opas, species of Opa-Opas, and we never know what they're even called. We just know this one's name.
Yeah,
because they're not all called Opa-Opa.
Names.
Sure, we know their names are probably like similar sounding, but it's a lot. Dark Opa-Opa is also playable in Fantasy Zone 2W Link Loop Land.
Looks like there is a fan hack to port Fantasy Zone Gear to the SMS.
Oh.
Came out in 2023.
I will have to check that out. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Also, the ending for the Master System version of Fantasy Zone 2 is different. And I think it involves Opa-Opa. And I think Opa-Opa is the one crying, because if you remember in the original Master System version of Fantasy Zone 2, it wasn't the dark light thing. It was 3 separate zones. So it ends up being kind of a Universe C type situation for the Fantasy Zone. So we've got Universe A, which is Fantasy Zone 2 good ending, Super Fantasy Zone into Fantasy Zone Gear, which tells the story of Opa-Opa, Opa-Opa, and Opa-Opa Jr. And then we have Universe B, which is Fantasy Zone 1 into Fantasy Zone 2 bad ending, and then everything's destroyed and collapses. And I don't know if Opa-Opa ever has a kid. I presume not. And then Universe C, which is Fantasy Zone 2 happens, but it's the separate Master System ending.
What if there's what if in the dark timeline he does still have a kid, but it's an evil Opa-Opa Jr.?
I would so fucking love for Sega to make a new Fantasy Zone and make it a dark timeline Fantasy Zone.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I know I just asked for a dark gritty reboot and it's the joke that you're not supposed to ask for, but I would be so down.
Yeah. Of anything that could use a dark gritty reboot, I think it would be best with Fantasy Zone, just because of how ridiculous that would be.
In the in Fantasy Zone 2W, in the character select screen, you can see Opa-Opa, Oopa-Oopa, and Dark Opa-Opa. And Dark Opa-Opa is like really evil and like all dark colored, has evil, angry red eyes. It's so cute. It's some of the cutest art. I think really what happened is we ended up going in a circle here with Opa-Opa because none of it is consistent.
No.
So it seems in the 3DS era, they redid the dates, changed them by 5,000 years.
Yeah.
But then the other games that haven't gotten redone, Super Fantasy Zone and Fantasy Zone Gear, which I consider in the main Fantasy Zone timeline, those are still the old dates. So I use the old dates because that matches up with more games than the 3DS games. Although I didn't check the Sega Ages game. I'm curious if they had a manual that changed it again or kept it the same or what they did with it. Although going by the text in the games themselves that have been re-released multiple times, who fucking knows? Who fucking knows?
Even the most recent releases still have what seems like a questionable translation with minimal effort in its text.
Yeah. Most definitely. Let's talk about guest appearances.
Okay.
Opa-Opa has been in lots and lots and lots and lots of games. You've got some listed here. You want to go through them?
Sure. And this is not a definitive or exhaustive list. This is just stuff that I immediately found. His earliest cameo that I could find was in Alex Kidd: The Lost Stars, which I think he's just a collectible or power-up or something. And then, of course, in Arnold Palmer Tournament Golf.
Wonderful.
And then Planet Harriers, which we discussed.
Yeah.
Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. He is a playable character. He is not a playable character in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed.
It's fucking bullshit because that's the superior game.
Yep. So, he's also in Burning Rangers. I think he's just like a little collectible thing. He is in Phantasy Star Online as a mag, which is his best appearance outside of Fantasy Zone itself. In Project X Zone, he appears, which, tons of Sega and Namco characters show up there. So, and then he also shows up in Sonic Riders and Sonic Adventure 2 during the Chow minigame, I believe. And then also in Sega Splash Golf. And you can also collect Opa-Opa figurines in the UFO catchers in both Shenmue and in the Yakuza games.
Wonderful. Opa-Opa is also a mag in Phantasy Star Online 2.
Oh, yeah. I assumed he would also be in the sequel.
I wouldn't assume much at this point. There's also Phantasy Star Online 2.
Yeah.
Or New Genesis or whatever. Also, there is Fantasy Zone DLC for Darius Burst Chronicles Savior that lets you play as Opa-Opa. It's a little weird. I don't love the way they implemented the Fantasy Zone system in the game.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's Fantasy Zone. It's cool to see.
Right.
It's cool to play. But yeah, Opa has been in a fucking ton of shit.
Oh yeah.
A whole ton of shit.
Not as much as he deserves to be in, though.
As far as final thoughts, Opa-Opa encompasses the full spectrum of emotion, all the while being just very cute and tiny and lovable, and he remains one of my favorite characters.
There's this weird, dark backstory coupled with cute spaceship
about
with feet.
financial ruin and fathers dying and depression. I hope Sega brings him back in a meaningful way one day. I have to hope that at the very least we'll get like a really good Fantasy Zone collection with everything all collected into one space and all the cool features and modes.
Yeah.
But I you know, I'm not holding my breath.
Right.
You know, but Opa-Opa is just so fascinating. And if you love reading weird old broken English manuals and shit, there's all sorts of weird stuff to absorb. What do you got for final thoughts on Opa-Opa?
I still think he's adorable.
He is adorable. You know what I need is like a little stuffed Opa-Opa. Someone somewhere sells an Opa-Opa plush.
It always makes me upset when I see the Opa-Opa plush in Yakuza that you get out of the UFO catcher, because
I'm Googling
I
it.
want it. I want it real bad.
Let's see. I found some on Etsy. $90.
Holy Jesus.
I don't $90 want it.
That's pretty cute looking.
Oh my God.
Surely there has to have been an official Opa-Opa at some point.
My favorite thing is the listing here lists it as custom plush, just like robot Opa-Opa game Fantasy Zone inspired.
Well, they don't want to say that it is Opa-Opa. It's just heavily inspired by
Right,
it.
heavily inspired. There you go. Yeah, that's Opa-Opa.
Yeah.
One very weird character. One of Sega's older ones, and one that I really enjoyed taking a really long, deep look at.
And I always appreciate when there's these weird, hidden, ultra dark stories behind cute things.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not sure that Sega actually believes in any of it.
No, I don't think they give a shit.
I think they phoned in a lot of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I discovered that immediately and then did 2 weeks of extensive research about it. I do want to take a minute before we get into the plugs and everything. I do want to thank everybody for listening to 500 episodes of the show.
Right?
Guy was very nice to show up and congratulate us at the beginning. And I thought a lot about it. I had like speeches planned that I was going to give at the end of this episode and stuff. And like, I don't know that any of them are relevant. I do think like, because I was thinking about like, you know, they say that you should make the art that you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, especially lately, just for people that aren't in our neck of the world and what's going on here, having something that is not related to current events, the news, anything going on, something where we can kind of tune out and
disassociate.
Think about weird little cute alien spaceships going through financial crises and depression,
as opposed to our own financial crises and depression.
I think that's what I want to see in the world.
Yeah.
That's what I need right now in my life. And so hopefully this is also something that's useful to those of you out there. That I know a lot of people listen on morning commutes or whatever, and we get you through hard work days and everything else. But if the show helps you get through a rough patch or a boring day at work or whatever, then like that means a lot to us.
I think from the beginning, we had set out to just kind of celebrate old video games and what makes them fun and what makes them interesting and what makes them exciting to us. And as long as we keep enjoying it, as long as we keep finding the fun in these games, I see no reason for us to slow down.
Yeah.
And it does continue to be fun every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thank you to everyone that listened to the show. I was checking our all-time downloads. We're fast approaching 1 million all-time downloads.
And all of them are Guy too, which is weird.
I know. I'm like, quit downloading the show, man. Guy, if you could do it 60,000 more times, that'd be great. Just go ahead and get us over the hill there. We don't run ads. I think we've
No.
reached a point in the show where like none of us are going to get rich off this. None of us are going to be paying our bills off of show revenue or anything
Right.
like that. It's
Yeah.
just going to be a thing we do for some spending money and for some fun. You
Yeah,
know?
really, we're here to enjoy the medium, to enjoy each other's company, and hopefully give something back to the community.
Yeah. And if you want to give something back to our community, you can go to patreon.com/retrowarriors and you can give us back money. You can give us money for all the things we do for you. We just told you about all the stuff we do for you. You could pay us for it. You know, you could if you wanted. You can
If
also
you want to
get-
help us avoid our financial crisis,
yeah. You can get cool things like talking wizards. You can get uncut versions of the show. You can hang out while we read old game magazines on Read Along.
yes,
Which and
is
if you're
the
not in
most
our
fun.
Discord, then come hang out in Discord. While Discord remains a viable place to socialize and hang out anyway, I'm perpetually worried that they're gonna like fuck that up any minute. But anyway, we want to thank the following patrons for their very kind donations, starting with Ebucel.
And my love for you is like a truck berserker.
Eric Eaton,
A Novocaine FS.
Thimble,
Asher Abramowitz.
Amarlian,
Grady Haynes.
Frowning Brownie.
And the New Craft.
They all gave us money. And
Yay.
you can too with the power of sending me money on the internet, please. That would be great. I don't know if I ever mention it. We have the ability to send one-time donations for people that are like, hey, I don't want to subscribe to your fucking shit, but like I'll give you $5 for making 500 solid hours of video game discussion for me to listen to. Because we have a Ko-fi page.
I think it's supposed to be coffee.
I don't know. But we have one of those. But more than anything, if you want to help the show, then just tell someone about it. Share it
Yeah.
with a friend. You know, I know a lot of people out there are looking for stuff that's creator owned, made by people that care, that's not running a bunch of fucking
Right.
ads. And thankfully, we fit all that criteria.
And also, you can just show up in our Discord and chat with us and chat
Yeah.
with other people who enjoy the same kind of things. And
Yeah.
it's,
Or if you're a billionaire who does want to buy me out, I do have a price.
yes.
I'll
we
take
have
$10 million
clear
or
prices.
whatever.
Yeah.
I love the show, but you know, I'm just throwing it out there.
Right.
You know, any angel investor wants to swoop in and buy the show for $1 billion.
Yeah,
Yes.
we love the show, but we love retirement as well. So, you know,
Anyway, thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. 500 episodes. Saturn, thank you to you for showing up for almost all of those episodes. And putting in so much work and research and notes and playing games and correcting my incorrect information as we go through 500 fucking episodes. We have to have covered every retro thing by now. Like we got to be
All of
done,
it.
right?
that's
all
all the
making
things.
me
We've
very
not
good.
covered the CDI. We've not covered the Jaguar. We've not
So
covered
basically,
the 3DO.
done then. Not, gonna
Not
do any
covered
of
the Amiga
those.
CD.
Sometimes I think of topics and I'm like, how have we not fucking done that? Like
Yeah.
stuff where it's like, what are we even thinking?
Right, yeah. There's
know.
some obvious things we've still not even touched yet. So that's
Still stuff to talk about. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.